So if you're a rugby player and you're looking to put on strength and size for the season, maybe you're in season, you're still looking to put on strength and size. You think it'll go and help you dominate in contact, which it definitely might. It might help injury prevention, and it might help you get selected in higher teams. Who knows? It depends how good you are actually at rugby, whether getting stronger actually helps you. But I think it helps most players. And I know how most people train in the gym for size gains is not very efficient, let's put it. And I'm going to show you why. So in this video, the main thing I want to talk about is the key driver for muscle growth. Okay, so what actually makes the muscle bigger? Okay, and that is mechanical tension. So what is mechanical tension? So I'm using my bottle here today. I'm going to use it as a bit of a prop so you get a better understanding of how mechanical tension actually builds muscle and what doesn't, and how normal people will train for hypertrophy, how that's probably slowing your progress. So let's get into this. I see this on Instagram, online all the time. Coaches butchering what they think mechanical tension is. I hear time under tension. I hear muscle length, so training at a longer length increases mechanical tension. These things just are not simply true, okay? So what is mechanical tension? So let's think of your muscle, and inside your muscle we have all these different muscle fibers that your brain has access to, and they're going to be split up into our low threshold motor units. So we have a motor unit, and our low threshold ones are all a whole lot of slow twitch muscle fibers. Now, your brain wants to work efficiently. Okay, in order to work efficiently, what it will do is it will use the lowest threshold first. So like me in everyday life, I'm using my low threshold motor units right now to lift this bottle. Okay, now if I lift this bottle really slowly, like this, these low threshold motor units are actually experiencing a lot of tension. Okay, so what we need, and they're actually experiencing mechanical tension. Okay, and so you just moving around every single day will actually hypertrophize those lower threshold motor units until like they're fully hypertrophized, right? And this is sort of like your base level of muscle. Now, if I were to get put into a cast, let's say I put my arm into a cast and I didn't move it for a week even, or even a couple of days, even those low threshold motor units would lose their size. Okay, so they would lose all of their potential, and that's why if you do get put into a cast on any sort of muscle, what happens is they lose all of those gains really quickly. But as soon as you got out of that cast and you started moving around again, those lower threshold ones would start coming back. And so what we need to understand is that hypertrophy is muscle fiber specific. Okay, so if we think of all these different muscle fibers, if we do not activate all of those different muscle fibers and they do not experience tension, they will actually start to lose size. Now, so if we go back to our motor units, okay, so before I even get to the mechanical tension, we need to understand that beginners have so much growth at the start, and you always hear beginners growth. This is because they have so much access to so many muscle fibers they've never tapped into before. So as soon as they start lifting weights even, they start to grow because there's so much potential there. And then after about 6 months, that's all going to slow down because the only ones left to actually hypertrophize, if this has been training properly, are your high threshold motor units. Okay, so what happens is as I go along, so say I'm lifting a weight here and I'm doing all these reps, as I go along, as I fatigue, my brain will go and signal, okay, I need more muscle fibers to be able to continue doing this task. Okay, so it'll go into my medium threshold motor units. Okay, so recruit more muscle fibers. And then as I'm getting close to failure, I can't do any more, I'm going to be starting to tap into my highest threshold motor units, okay? The biggest ones, which are generally your fast twitch muscle fibers, okay? And as more at advanced, so once you've gone past that beginner's stage and that intermediate stage, which is only about 6 to 8 months realistically if you train well, the only ones left you can really tap into is those high threshold ones. Now, I said I was going to talk about mechanical tension, right? Okay, so we've got a little bit of understanding of motor units, okay, and muscle fibers. Now, how do these muscle fibers experience tension? Okay, so if I were to do something really fast like this, all right, I actually have really low amounts of tension. But because I'm actually putting a lot of effort to move as fast as I possibly can, looks silly, I know, but as I'm trying to move as fast as I possibly can, I'm actually activating a whole lot of motor units. So I have very low tension in the muscle fibers because that tension is spread out across all of my muscle fibers because I'm putting a lot of effort. So the more effort, so you need to be able to put in as much effort as possible on the concentric, because what's happening with tension, it's like a pulling force. There's a pulling force pulling across the muscle fibers, okay? That's probably the easiest way to think about it. And we need them to be active, right? So we want the muscle fibers to be active and we need that pulling force, okay? So we're gonna need to be able to move something as fast as we possibly can, but we need to be slow, okay? So we need a slow movement because that allows the cross-bridging inside the muscle fibers to happen. If we go too fast, those cross bridges don't get to form, we don't get that tension. That's where we get our fast movements. That's why fast movements do not cause hypertrophy. Okay, they might cause muscle damage, but muscle damage isn't going to cause hypertrophy, and we know that, right? If we did, even long distance runners who are constantly running, they would have a whole lot of hypertrophy, but they simply don't. Okay, so what we need is a slow movement speed. That's the number one, to be able to access those fibers. But we need an involuntary slow movement speed. So we need to be able to try our hardest, but with a slow movement speed. So that could be an isometric where you just hold something and try and pull up as hard as you possibly can against it. So that could be, that's isometrics. They do work for hypertrophy, we know that. Or, you could do this from doing 30 reps. You could get it from doing 5 reps. So if you use a 5 RM and you're doing 5 reps, every one of those reps is going to be slow enough to have high mechanical tension on those high threshold motor units. Okay, because it's slow, all right, there's as much effort as possible as happening. Now, if I was doing 30 reps, if with 30 RM, say I was going to fail on the 30th rep, then up to about 25 would just be fatiguing me enough. So say I was doing 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 25. And by 25, I'm starting to slow down now. 26, 27, now that slowness, and because I've had that extra fatigue, has then made my body to tap into those higher threshold motor units. And as soon as I start tapping into those, they are the ones that we need to experience tension in order to grow, okay? And they need that slow movement speed. So that is sort of what mechanical tension is. It's that pulling force which forms cross bridges inside the muscle fiber, which then signals to the body to add more contractile proteins in order to make you stronger so you can do this task again. All right, which flies in the face of like how most people train, right? Like most people train is they think they're tearing a muscle and then it's going to rebuild. And it doesn't actually happen that way. And there's lots of like reasons why, but a simple one is when you're actually working out, muscle tears aren't actually happening. So what's actually happening is calcium ions are going into the muscle fiber, right? And so the more reps you do, the more lengthened reps you do, the more eccentrics you do, the more the calcium ion channels are open and coming in. Okay, and that causes a whole lot of inflammation. But there's no proof that that actually causes any growth. Otherwise, cardio, which does the same thing, causes damage, would cause growth. Otherwise, plyometrics would cause growth. Otherwise, even muscle bruising would cause growth, but it just simply doesn't. So there's lots of different ways you could look at that. Whereas we know for sure that mechanical tension does cause growth, and it's got the most research behind it. Now, that all sounds well and good. I know there's a lot going on in this video, but I'm using this so like I can use this on other videos as well. So like this might take you a few listens to wrap your head around, and you might need to do some further research. And you can ask me on Instagram or here if you want to discuss things further. I'm going to add one more little topic on top. So fatigue is a state where your exercise performance drops because we can't recruit as many muscle fibers. Okay, and one of the big things like inflammation and calcium ion accumulation is going to increase fatigue. So say you do high reps or drop sets at the start of your workout, your next sets, you're going to have so much calcium ion related fatigue, it's actually going to impact the rest of your workout. So instead of hitting those high threshold motor units, you're going to be failing way before you even get to reach those high threshold motor units. Okay, because the reason you fail is the perception of effort, all right? It's got nothing to do with the muscle. It's all about perception of effort, okay? So like how much perception of effort you're doing. So say I hold something else up and I do this, I'll fail way longer or way sooner if I just not hold something else. And because that's perception of effort, my brain's like, okay, I don't have to do this task. Okay, I've only got to do this. So I can spend all of my motor units, all of my energy going to here, right? And not energy in terms of energy system, but just like its processes, okay? So that is why you fail. And so like other things, reason why you fail is like if you're breathing heavy, if there's a cardiovascular sort of part of the exercise. So if you're doing like high reps of squats, all right, the reason you're gonna fail is probably because you're gonna be out of breath, not because the muscles couldn't do anymore. Sure, the muscles might hurt, but that doesn't mean like they're tearing. That doesn't mean that, okay? So what we need to get away from is, is these things that we're chasing fatigue, we're chasing tiredness rather than chasing results. And so what I do with all my programs is I use more lower reps. So I use 4 to 8 reps because we can get that mechanical tension in there with less fatigue. All right, so we can stimulate mechanical tension with less fatigue. So that means you'll be able to work out sooner because your recovery is going to be better. And there's also other benefits of that is that you're actually going to get more strength gains because strength gains are specific to the load that you use. And hypertrophy, growing muscle, is just one of them. And so when you're training between that 4 and 8 for hypertrophy, we're going to get all these other gains. So we're going to get the coordination gains of a heavy weight, right? We're going to get, most likely, we're going to get tendon stiffness, which is going to help your strength. But I use more isometrics for tendons. Yeah, and there's lots of other things, like even motor unit recruitment is going to be higher compared to using lower reps. And I think a lot of people doing lower reps happen because of bodybuilders just using steroids, all right, and then saying that they're natural and things like that. I think that's how it came about, and then people believing that muscle damage was how you grow. So like if you think about how most people program for hypertrophy, they'll do a block where they do anywhere between 10 and 15 reps generally, and they'll do that with a superset. With a superset of the same muscle, that is. But by the time they get to that superset of the same muscle, because of that fatigue, they're just going to be playing in the lower threshold motor units. They're going to be playing in those medium threshold motor units. And they're going to fail because, it's going to feel hard, but they're going to fail way before they even tap into those high threshold motor units again because the perception of effort being so high. Okay, and so when we get away from that, you can get far better results for your own body. And I say that because everyone's got their own genetics. They've all got their makeup of how many fast twitch muscle fibers that are in their arms and whatever muscle it may be. How many fibers they actually have to hypertrophize. And like I've trained a whole bunch of different girls and guys, and some people just grow, and then some people grow a bit slower because they just don't probably have as many fibers available to grow. And that's okay. Like you just got to do what's best for you. So let's recap this. All right, mechanical tension is not time under tension. Okay, it is not lengthened partials or training in a lengthened position. It is not that. It is literally a pulling part on muscle fibers. Muscle fibers are activated, okay, by high amounts of what's the word for it? Muscle fibers are activated by high amounts of effort. Okay, so you've got to put a high amount of effort into it. All right, and then training near failure, we're going to get up to those higher threshold motor units if you're not fatigued. Okay, and we need that involuntary slowing. So like where the weight slows down the concentric. Okay, muscle's really not built in the eccentric. Okay, so if you're doing longer eccentrics, it's not built then. Okay, so you don't need to worry about doing really long eccentrics. You can do shorter eccentrics. just for the control aspect, and then you know what to progress each week. And that's the last thing, is you want to make sure that you're progressing each week, because hypertrophy, adding more proteins to the muscle fiber, okay, makes you stronger. So if you keep on getting stronger, if you can add 1 rep a week, or you can add a little bit of load, like as minimal as possible, I like to recommend, and you just keep building on that. All right, not sets. Sets don't count for progressive overload. Only weight, okay, and what was I saying? Only weight and reps, okay? So if you can do that, then that means you're most likely growing, okay? How much growth? Depends on your genetics. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and yeah, check out rugbydevelopmentcoach.com. We have all our programs there. We have our maximum muscle program. We have our super player program, which is our speed program, which is not, you will get some hypertrophy from it because of the mechanical tension, but it is more focused around speed and staying away from failure and working on other parts. And some people will go maximum muscle program, then I'll put them on super player program for more speed near the season. We also have our kids programs. We have our body weight programs for kids, 8 to 14. And then we have our beginners weights programs for kids starting the gym. I hope you've loved it. Give me a comment below, and I'll see you around.